Hello, everyone. This is day 13 of the Israeli-Hamas war. The date today is October 19th, 2023, 8:30 at night in Israel. I'm giving you all these details in case by the time you see this, something changes in the news and you're wondering why I didn't relate to it, or maybe things have changed in how people perceive the event. So just to make sure. It's been 2 days since my last video, and there were two reasons why I didn't record anything yesterday. But the main reason, the one reason was just because I was tired. But on a deeper level, past 2 days were more or less the same, and I figured I'd give you a recap today for the past 2 days. What's really going on? So, first of all, on the ground, what's happening is that you have to imagine always that there are two main fronts in Israel at the moment. Possibly three, but we'll talk about two. One is in the south where Gaza is, and the other one is in the north where Hezbollah is in Lebanon. So in Gaza, things are continuing as before, which means Israel is performing targeted strikes using airplanes and killing mainly, or at least the things that we're tracking in the media, is striking against militants. Several top generals of Hamas were reportedly killed over the past few days. And I like to believe that that's designed to both deter them and to also kill several of their military leaders to hobble their operation moving forward. However, this has been something that Israel has done in the past too. And I'm not an expert on strategy and on intelligence, but it would seem to me that if I were building an organization like Hamas, I would already be well versed in how to deal with that, how to recover from those things. You have second-in-commands and backups, etc. But still, it's an important phase in, crippling some of their operation. In the north, slowly there's an escalation. It's still not clear if this is an escalation that's leading out to all-out war with Hezbollah. Like I said before, in general, what's happening in the north is probably designed just to keep half of the Israeli army locked in the north, so that we can't put all of our forces down south with Hamas. But the nature of war is that it can escalate and can evolve beyond even the intentions of the people perpetrating it, and sometimes it falls into the hands of people that would like to escalate. So we'll see. Israel is trying as much as it can to keep things quiet in the north. When I say quiet, I don't mean quiet. It's not quiet at all. There are rockets being fired on cities and on towns and on army forces. Israel responds, but it's all kept on like a low key compared to, let's say, more intense stuff that will be for sure coming in the south. But the Israeli army is mobilized. Again, I don't know, maybe there are additional pieces being put in place. Obviously, people are training and preparing and planning, but several 100,000 people are now, in the army as part of reserve duty. And I think everybody around is just waiting for Israel to start moving. Yesterday, we had Biden visit, President Joe Biden. Today, we had the Prime Minister of Britain visit, both in a great show of support. But I think that basically the Israeli, I'll talk about that now. What is the feeling on this side when you receive that support? So, I want to start with a good. President Biden and I think his name is Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of Britain, both have been extremely vocal in support of Israel, in support of condemning Hamas, and not only talking. In the case of Biden, he also sent here aircraft carriers to help deter Hezbollah and prevent a third world war, hopefully from erupting, by people thinking that Israel is weak. And people in Israel were I think everybody was very appreciative and very calmed by that, by these strong statements of support, because Israel traditionally feels, like it's left out to dry or hung out to dry by its allies when faced with terrorism. Not all the way, but not, let's say, fully supported in what it needs to do. Usually, and there's a very strong sense of support right now. The flip side of that is that a lot of people are wondering what was agreed between Israel and the U.S. and Britain. What is being discussed, behind closed doors? One thing is to say we support you in general. What we know is that there was a discussion about humanitarian aid to people that live in Gaza, to the Palestinians, and Israel was very vocal about restrictions on those on that humanitarian aid. It's one thing to say people can have water, and it's another thing to tell them you can be given food and clothing and medicines, because imagine each one of these for two reasons. The number one reason is just to generate pressure on Hamas. It's one of the tools that we have. But the other more important one is that we have a very long history with Hamas taking stuff that is given to the people and then just being sucked into their military operation. Imagine if all the medicines you give go to help not civilians but terrorists to get up on their feet and go fight you again. Israel has no interest in allowing that to happen, and but there is pressure from the United States, and I'm sure that there were some concessions made. But that's like the small stuff. The bigger stuff, the bigger question that Israelis have here is, will we be allowed to do what is necessary? What is necessary in order to really cripple Hamas and basically oust it out of power, or make it powerless to do anything, right? To completely, raze to the ground, not the city of Gaza, but the military operations built into the city of Gaza. I mentioned to you in the previous episode about the fact that they use hospitals and mosques as army bases, right? It doesn't photograph very well. It's not very photogenic to destroy a mosque or a hospital. We'll get to the hospital in just a moment, the story with the hospital that began 2 days ago. But, what if that's the truth, right? What if the truth is that hospital is also mixed in with a military base? Why do the lives of the people in that hospital matter more than the lives in Israeli hospitals, which are under fire all the time, right? It doesn't make sense to put those limitations. But again, there could be all sorts of political constraints that Biden is under, political needs he has, and maybe not. We don't know. And I think that's like the key point, because the Israeli army is like on the ready and is ready to be told to go forward and take care of what needs to be taken care of and do whatever needs to be done in Gaza. The fact that we're not going yet is putting everybody on edge, feeling like we should go and see what happens. Again, when I take everybody, of course, I only talk to a small scattering of people. I'm simply telling you what I believe is what I feel, what people around me feel, and what I see in the news. One last bit of context here. One of the reasons why people are a bit anxious to see Israel start to make a move is because this is the second time that Israel has collected its army in the past, let's say, decade, and parked it at the border with Gaza as a threat to enter it. And then the last time we just said, okay, we got what we wanted politically, so we're stepping back. And right now the feeling amongst the people is there is no way. There's no way. We cannot go back to what it was. There has to be a fundamental change on the ground. And if there isn't such a thing, then it's not a possibility. Any government that would not take strong action, devastating action against Hamas in such a situation will not live. The government won't live long, meaning the government won't last as a political entity. I'm not talking about the people, of course. So people are just waiting to see that we actually go ahead and do something. And this wait is very difficult. Imagine if your child is in the army and you don't know if he's going to be going into a war zone every minute, and you're just waiting and waiting just to know. It's really as you tear your hair out trying to wait this out. So that's the thing with Biden. But overall, I mean, so far, I'd say, he did an amazing job. But what happened behind the scenes and how will things evolve, we'll have to see. The second thing, which I wanted to talk to you about, was the hospitals. So, if you follow the news regularly, by now you should know that what I had raised as like one of the possible interpretations of what happened at the hospital turned out to be completely true, which is that it was not Israel that had fired, that it hit the hospital. It was a missile that misfired on the Palestinian side. It most likely didn't even hit the hospital. It probably hit the side of the hospital, like a parking lot next to the hospital. It first they reported like 500 dead. It had probably like 10 to 50 from UN reports. Everything was inflated and used just as a tool to attack Israel. The fact that these clarifications came out after a day that Israel did its research, and not only did its research, but was able to provide video evidence showing the misfire at that exact point in time, because we have, a video feed watching Gaza, so we can show these things happening. Also, civilian cameras can see that. The fact we have recordings of people of Hamas talking amongst each other, talking about the misfire, and describing people firing rockets from the cemetery next to the hospital, and then it hits the hospital. It's very, in this case, thankfully, there's very clear evidence that anybody can see. And I can see online that the fact checkers, the real honest fact checkers that I was following also before this period are seeing it and sharing it and being honest about it. But I do want to point out two things. First of all, in the period between the accusation and the refutation, a lot happened. Okay, there were huge riots around the world, both in America and also where even like Congress women like Rashida Tlaib went on a rant claiming that Israel attacks hospitals on purpose, which is a lie on so many levels, because even if Israel would have hit the hospital, it would have been not on purpose, unless they knew for sure that there was something really, really big under the hospital, in which case the people that put their military operation there are the ones that are the war criminals, according to international law, from what I know. But it didn't stop her from accusing Israel and having riots also and protestations based on that in America. But across the Arab world, this has caused like a lot of heated, emotions and crying. They're crying out to their governments to attack Israel. It's a really destabilizing thing, these things. And, we live in an era where it's so easy to generate fake news and misinformation. And I'm not getting into the question of whether this should be, monitored and controlled by the government. That's not the point. Fundamentally, it's very easy to spread, to generate things that look bad, and then spread them. And if you're able to, convince people that it really happened, then you can have riots. And, there were synagogues in Berlin and a synagogue in Tunisia that were vandalized in Berlin, right? The never again country. It's not good, And I think the part, though, that as an Israeli and as a Jew, that the most concerned me is how what's called legacy media is just behaving anti-Israel. I will try and find a link to put to this video, which will give you some context from like an article 10 years ago about why Israel gets such a bad rap in the media. But just think about it for a moment. Just try to imagine that you're like in the New York Times. First of all, the New York Times started out, and there's you can look online, you'll see this. I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to give you a feeling of what it feels like as an Israeli. Okay, so there's a bomb that something goes off around the hospital in Gaza, and that's horrible, of course. But we don't know what caused it. Could be Israel, could be a Palestinian rocket. There's both of these things have happened in the past. But 15 minutes later, the Palestinians say, Israel attacked us, there's 500 dead. Now, there's no way that anybody could know that number after 15 minutes. There's no way you can know so soon how many dead there are. And whereas what should happen is that the media should be skeptical and say, well, we have a war zone here. There could be one side that caused the fatalities or another. But instead, they just eat it up and run with the story blaming Israel. Now, not only that, in the New York Times, and again, I haven't looked into this from what I've read, they used an image of the supposed hospital that was struck. There was a false image. It was not a picture of the hospital. It looked like this devastated building, but it was not a picture of the hospital. So that's insane. The New York Times, where is your fact checking? Where is your, journalistic integrity and care? And then when this was turned out to be not true, then they don't take it back and say, "Oh, we were completely wrong." Palestinians fired a rocket. Then it becomes, "Oh, he claims, he said, he this, he that." In other words, it becomes suddenly debatable. So when the things first come out, they are presented as if they are objectively true, that the information provided by the Palestinians is the correct one. There's no debate and no need to investigate further. And once more data comes to light, suddenly it's fuzzied out. And this happened also with the BBC, which has been horrendous, not even calling Hamas a terror organization. I'm just saying, as an Israeli and as a Jew and as a person who cares about the truth, seeing how biased these vessels that are supposed to provide information and supposed to be caring about the truth as part of their creed, and how one-sided they are, and it really breaks my heart. I'm the kind of guy who wants to believe that people mean well. I want to believe that people are making honest mistakes. And that if you just show them the data, they will admit and they will align and say, "Oh, you're right. Now I know the truth and I'm with you." It just, as an Israeli, you really want the world to understand you. It's such a complicated region. And the feeling that even if you show them facts, it's not going to change anything is really devastating for that deep desire to understand one another. One moment. I'm sorry. That noise. Okay, I apologize for that. I have two laptops in this room here, and one of them was making noises while the other one was the one that I'm using here. Okay. Yeah, anyway. So it's very frustrating to be part of a country and a people that always feels like it's being attacked, and the specter of anti-Semitism is always there, because there really are people that are anti-Semites, as weird as that is. Finally, I want to share with you one dilemma that I've seen people discuss online, just for you to understand again where we are, right? Especially because of this media element that enters our lives here. There are horrendous images and horrendous recordings from what happened in Gaza, not in Gaza, but in the what's called Otef Gaza, the surrounding towns, the towns that surround Gaza. I'm not talking about settlements, just to be clear. I mean, settlements and towns is just two words, but when people say settlements, they usually refer to what they consider to be, let's say, settlements that are illegal or in areas that were taken in 1967. This is none of that. We're not talking about that at all. Israel has in that area, we don't have any towns that are, within that area, because in 2005, we left Gaza. So since we left Gaza in 2005, there was no, there are no more Israeli Jewish towns there. But anyway, there's a lot of images and video and recordings that are heart-wrenching, destructive to the soul to watch. And some of these you've probably seen. But I got to tell you, like, I haven't seen 99% of the ones that are available because I just, to keep my sanity at this point, I must. It's like uh, the brutality, the pain, even the little bit that I saw is like scorched into my soul. And down the line, I'm sure that I will. But right now, I can't. Um, but Israel has a dilemma because these kinds of images are the kinds of images that Hamas likes to play around with all the time. Israel will fire into some place. They'll send pictures out. Sometimes they'll be true. Sometimes they'll be false. And the fact that we have this material. Think about it. We have this material that is explosive, and how horrible it is, and how much it shows the evil that Hamas is. There's two levels of dilemma. One is you don't want to. You don't. It feels wrong to use these images to manipulate world opinion. Okay, I use the word manipulate on purpose, even though it's not manipulation. It's just showing people what is true. But it feels wrong to take these people's suffering and to commercialize it in that way. Again, commercial is wrong. It's not money. But to sort of you sort of want just to have people's pain be their pain and not make them pawns as part of a tool. But at the same time, what are we going to do? Not show these images? This is what happened. And in addition to that, Hamas is showing you these pictures all the time, or making up pictures like this all the time. It really feels like the classic dilemma of the superhero, right? The superhero many times has a dilemma of, venturing into a darker place in order to save people, or trying to save the person he loves versus trying to save a lot of other people. Like, there's all these dilemmas that the bad guys like to put the hero in because they realize that they, in a sense, hurt their hero anyway. Either they hurt his soul or they hurt him physically, right? And having these moral dilemmas is where Israel is, and Hamas knows how to use that. So Israel has apparently, I've just heard today, a bunch of footage that is beyond anything that we've already seen, that they just haven't showed anyone. And so, but they have the same dilemma, the same dilemma of what to do. Should these images be shown? They could also hurt morale on our side, right, during the war, and they can be, but they might boost our international standing because of people being horrified. I don't have a good answer of what the right thing to do is here, when to do it, how to do it. But I just want you to understand the dilemma. At some point down the line, you might see, images coming out, and you'll be, oh, why are they only showing them now? I mean, some of these things are so horrendous you don't want to show them at all, and some of them are so horrendous they might hurt the morale in Israel when we're trying to gear up for a big battle, a big fight. And at the same time, some things, you also may want to first tell the families. Don't want to do it without first telling them you're going to do it, and it's just a horrible thing. So I'm just saying, down the line, you might hear things and you'll be suspicious of why they're coming up the way they are. Just understand it's not just video and pictures. It's something deeper that we're struggling with here when trying to make those decisions. Anyway, that's it for today. I really hope that things, evolve in a way that is good for the world and good for justice and truth. And thank you guys for listening and being part of my journaling here. I just want to point out that I'm not sure yet. Of course, every time I will record, once I feel that there's something to share. I don't want to waste your time when things are static. And also I'm religious, so I keep the Sabbath. So that means I will not be recording ever on Saturday, but the day before, the day after. If there's something, I'll of course record. Thank you for listening, and good night. Stay safe.